Hey there. Coach Chris Fox with today's rest day video. And when I'm going to start out by saying I'm nervous to record this. When the idea for this came up, well, this is the third one now. I think we've had Whitney and Brittany, and then now me. When the idea for this came up, David was asking if coaches wanted to do rest day videos. I threw my name in the hat very enthusiastically and then kind of started to develop a little bit of anxiety about it. Here's that to kind of to preface this little bit that I'll talk to you guys with about. Um, and I was kind of wondering, like, what should I talk about? Like, should I talk about food? Should I talk about fitness? Should I talk about, how to exercise your back when you're at home? Or, and I kept coming back to, like, should I talk about something that maybe is a little more relevant for me right now, and something that is a little more personal and not necessarily exercise. And I have decided to go that route. So here it is. If you know me, like most of you guys do, only from the gym, and especially if you've had the misfortune of having me teach your foundations group, then you might know me as kind of a gregarious person in the gym and pretty comfortable and engaging and talking to people, especially. And, I've done a lot of speaking in front of groups of people. But really, I'm a pretty shy, I think, person. And it's taken a lot of work to be able to be comfortable talking in front of groups of people, because I've really dealt with a lot of anxiety for a lot of years. And without going too much back into maybe where all that came from, that's still therapy, and that's going to be work in progress for a while. But I've been a pretty quiet. I was a pretty quiet, shy kid, and when I realized that I had this kind of anxiety and panic to deal with, was when I went back to school as an adult for exercise physiology. So kind of the beginning of the path that I guess has led me to recording this video now for CrossFit South Brooklyn during a pandemic shutdown. So the brief version, I think, is that I had gone back to school as an adult after leaving the restaurant world post 9/11. Like a lot of people had kind of a identity, I wouldn't say crisis, but definitely started to wonder what I was doing in the world. And at the time felt like I was ready to leave the restaurant that I was at. And so a confluence of things led me to a gym as an adult, and led me to going to school for exercise physiology, because I was just enamored with this whole process of going to the gym, and how did this, like, 30 something really unfit vegan guy with barely any muscle mass go to the gym, and within 6 months had, like, made some progress. I was wondering what that was. So anyway, I go back to school, and I'm in my 30s, and I was going to the CUNY system, City University of New York, and the school I was in had a lot of kids that were just coming out of high school. So I felt like, I've got this down, and I'm like way up here, and I know what I'm doing, and I'm here because I want to be here. And I guess in some ways I felt like school would be no big deal, at least the first little bit, where for me it was the first time going to school. So I had to take classes like English 1 and, math and bio, because my path out of high school led me to move directly into the workforce. And when I was in my, I think, first or second year of school, I was in like an English 101 class, and the book that we were reading and discussing was George Orwell's 1984, which is not pertinent to the story, but I remember it. And I remember having a point that I really wanted to make in the discussion, and the professor, called on me when I raised my hand. And in my head, I had this whole thing that I wanted to talk about. And in my body and in my mouth, I just froze. And I literally had these physical sensations of my palms were sweaty, and my heart rate was just really, really jacked. And I got really, really nervous. And I thought maybe I was having a heart attack, or maybe I just didn't know what the hell was happening. I knew that I felt really anxious, even though I don't think I described it to myself as anxiety. And I knew that I had to get out of that situation. So I had raised my hand to answer this question, and within probably about 20 seconds, actually just got up and left the classroom, and was quite embarrassed at that whole situation. But luckily had the presence of mind to take myself to someone at the school, like the mental health counselor at the school. And I thought that I was going to go in and talk to this person. Turned out to be a woman who was the mental health counselor, and made an appointment. I thought I was going to talk to her, and she was going to tell me I was effing crazy, and probably recommend that I go on some medicine, which I already had an argument against in my head as someone who didn't want to be on any kind of drugs or medicine. And she proceeded to describe to me, she asked me some questions, and did this happen? Did these physical symptoms happen? And when I described to her what was going on, she said, "Oh yeah, it sounds like you had like an anxiety attack or a panic attack." And I thought, what? Like, I'm not, that's not who I am. I'm not an anxious person. I don't have panic attacks. I've dealt with a lot of things in my life, and that's not who I am. You must be mistaken. But I decided to trust her, and she gave me some advice. And this is, I guess it's like 17 years ago for me now, maybe a little longer. She gave me some breath work to do, and didn't describe it as breath work, and didn't, tell me where it came from, and I didn't think to ask. But she said, these are physical symptoms that your body is going through, and what happens is that they kind of spiral. So you have this physical response to being anxious about something. In this particular case, it was answering a question about George Orwell's 1984. And that physical response leads to increased anxiety because, you feel weird. And then you start to wonder why you feel weird. And then, I thought I was going to have a heart attack or something. I really thought there was something just wrong with my heart. So I was lucky enough to wind up having this interaction with a woman who I saw a few times at school, who probably was wondering what the hell this 30-year-old guy was doing in her office when she's used to seeing a bunch of 17, 18-year-old kids. But it helped me to identify that this was something that was normal, that it was so matter of fact for her. She was like, yeah, of course you're anxious. Like, you're an adult and you have kids and you're transitioning careers, and it was all of this stuff going on in my life that I had just really kind of pushed down and not thought about as things that might affect me, because I thought I was tough enough to deal with all that stuff. And she let me know that it was okay, and that, it didn't mean I wasn't tough, but that I had a lot of stuff going on, and that it was perfectly normal to have those symptoms. So this is something that I've dealt with for really my whole life, and certainly for the last 10 years, I've done a lot more work on it. In the last maybe 3 to 4 years, I've done even more work on it. And it's not something that goes away from me. It's not something that I think I'll ever move past. And so that's why I wanted to talk, I guess, about this on this video today, the rest day video, because I know that a lot of people, from having had the fortune, the good luck to deal with so many people in this industry, in the industry of fitness, and learn over the course of years that people come in for the abs and the fitness, but really a lot of times what we get involved in this stuff for is to manage our emotions and manage the other stuff that's going on in our life. And sometimes it can be easy to use, or not easy, but it is one path to use fitness to get away from all of this other stuff and all the stuff that maybe causes anxiety. And you might not have physical symptoms like I did, panic attack, anxiety attack, but I know that they're common. And the racing mind, is a pretty common thing too. So here we are in this fitness sphere, and we're just adding on top of this already kind of full cup. We're pouring more in. We're stressed out, especially right now. We're socially distanced. We maybe don't have a lot of connection, and we pour on this need to do more stuff, and it kind of just can create a little more anxiety. So I don't really have advice, and I wouldn't presume to offer advice to anybody, but I can only speak from my own path. And for me, learning to recognize that, when I find myself suppressing things, to be able to just try to create a little bit of space to acknowledge what's going on, not necessarily fix it, but definitely not run away from it, has been really helpful. And the breathing exercises that I was given all those years ago, which kind of reminded me of yoga when I had started to do yoga in my early 20s, have been really just tremendously helpful, because there is this upstream, downstream effect of breath work. When I got that panic attack, when that started to happen to me, my heart rate elevated and my respiratory rate elevated, and I felt like I couldn't get enough air in. So that was like my brain and my emotions affecting my breathing. But you can also do the same thing the other way around. You can use your breathing to affect your emotions. And I have found that to be really, really just a powerful tool that I like to have in my back pocket and I can really use, especially when I start to get anxious about stuff. And it's something that you can kind of do incognito. You don't even have to let anybody know that you're doing it. Even just one or two deep breaths where you focus on an exhalation can be a really great practice. So I feel like that was a little bit meandering, but I did want to share that today, that anxiety, panic, around a bunch of different stuff is something that I've dealt with, and it's something that a lot of people deal with. So if you're finding yourself in that place now where, you look at Instagram and everybody's doing something really cool, and there's like, they're baking sourdough bread and they've got a side hustle going and they're outside exercising and it's their third workout of the day, and you're not doing that, like, that's okay. Don't be anxious about it. Maybe just take a moment, take a deep breath for yourself, and know that, that all of that is normal. So, if you're in that boat, there's lots of people in that boat with you. And today is a rest day. There's no, I think, exercise program today. I guess there's going to be Roadrunners program for today. But anyway, if you're resting today, hopefully you find some time for yourself to allow yourself to feel those feelings. You can, Google search breath work. You can drop into Tuesday morning mindfulness class. We're doing a little bit of that. And there are a lot of resources available to you. And if you would like to reach out and talk to anybody about it, just to, holler out, there are plenty of people, and I'm definitely one of them. So hopefully that is helpful. It was helpful even for me to just shoot this video. So have a great rest day, guys. Thanks.